So for this lying down yoga practice, you're going to want to find a comfortable space on the floor with a little bit of space to either side of you, lying preferably on a thin, soft mat. Try not to lie on too hard of a surface, or in contrast, too soft of a surface. We'll begin just by laying flat, feet out in front of us, letting our feet fall to the sides, arms down to our side, so our hands are near our hips, palms up or palms down, just whatever's most comfortable. If it's alright, go ahead and close your eyes. Just feeling yourself in the moment, in the space that you're in right now. Feeling your body in contact with the floor. Just feeling yourself sink into the ground a little bit. Eliminating some of the spaces between our body and the ground, in our lower back. Just looking for tension in places that we can let go. We're going to begin keeping our arms straight, raising our arms straight up above us, nice and slow, taking your time, no rush, paying attention to the movement itself, the way that it feels in your body and your shoulders, what muscles are being used. Just stopping when our hands are directly above us, pointing towards the ceiling. Now if you're ready, just letting your hands fall down over your head so that they'll be lying on the ground directly above us, creating a nice long body from the tips of our fingers all the way to the heels of our feet. Feeling that stretch, feeling the way the breath moves through the body from this position. And slowly beginning to return our hands back up. So raising our arms up off the floor, keeping them straight. Feeling our body work. Pausing briefly when our hands are straight up, pointed towards the ceiling again. And then nice and slow, over the course of 3 to 5 breaths, letting our arms return all the way back down to the floor. But being present for the whole movement, feeling the air move between your fingers. And then really being present for the moment when our arms return to the ground, where the muscles get to relax, gravity stops pulling so hard. Just feel the release of tension. Just maybe contrasting that and appreciating how much work is actually being done, how much effort it takes our body to control our arms and keep them from just falling to the floor. Now bending our knees, pointing our knees towards the ceiling, placing our feet flat on the floor. Staying right about shoulder width apart, right about hip width apart. And then spreading your arms out for a T. If it's comfortable, place your palms down on the floor. If not, it's okay. If the space isn't available, go ahead and just place your hands folded behind the back of your head. Now bringing our attention to that space in our lower back between our body and the floor. That little archway, that bridge. On our next exhale, we're going to press our lower back down into the floor and the mat, trying to eliminate as much of that space as possible. Feeling our stomach and belly button pressed towards the floor. Attempting to create a flat spine running from our tailbone all the way up to our upper back. And then on the next inhale, recreating that arch, pressing your belly button up towards the ceiling, opening up that space between our lower back and the mat again. For the next few breaths, just following this pattern. Exhale, flattening the back, pressing down. Inhale, raising our belly, creating the arch. And notice how this movement affects the rest of our body. The rolling of our hips and our tailbone. Maybe even the sliding up and down the mat of our shoulders and the back of our head. Pressing of the heels into the floor. And after your next full cycle, inhale and exhale, just return back to neutral. Now bringing your knees towards your chest, we're going to lift our feet up off the ground and place your hands either directly behind your knee, grabbing the back of your leg on the hamstrings, or if it's comfortable, placing your knee on your shin below your kneecap. Just ever so gently pulling our thighs and our knees in towards our chest. If you feel like you can go a little bit deeper, if this movement is comfortable, raising your head up off the floor and bringing your forehead towards your knees. Taking 1 or 2 full breaths here, feeling the difference. Feeling the stretch along your back and your spine. And returning back down to the floor. And one more time if you'd like, raising your head up. And again, relaxing, returning down. Keeping our right leg pulled in, we're going to release our left leg, straightening it all the way out, pushing towards the wall in front of us, resting on the floor. Now continuing to just slightly pull that right leg towards our chest. Feel that left heel pushing away. Noticing the stretch and the difference between the two sides now. Noticing how the breath may feel different on the right versus the left. And now bringing that left leg back in towards our chest. Just taking one breath with both knees in our chest and then extending the right leg out. Keeping the left leg pulled in tight, letting that right leg press away. Now extending both legs all the way out in front, letting our hands just fall to our side. Just taking one or two breaths here in this original starting position. And then as you're ready, we're going to roll over into all fours, placing our hands extended on the mat, palms on the mat, so that our arms, our elbows, our wrists are stacked directly underneath our shoulders. And then our hips and our knees are bent so that our knees are directly underneath our hips into what we call a tabletop position. Now from this position, pressing your belly button down towards the floor while simultaneously lifting your chin and looking up towards the ceiling. And then now rounding your back up towards the ceiling and dipping your head and your chin between your arms towards your chest, attempting to look at your belly button, feeling that big sweeping arch in your spine. And now just following this pattern for the next few breaths. Belly button down, raising your chin up, looking up. And then tucking your chin, looking in towards your stomach, letting your back raise up towards the ceiling. And again, noticing the movement in the rest of the body as well. The turning of our hips. Maybe there's even movement in our feet, the pressure in our hands. And just returning and holding in this position, just flat back on all fours. Just for a minute listening to the body. Checking in with our heart rate. The general feel. Maybe noticing a difference in how we feel now versus when we first laid down. Now from this position, extending your right leg straight behind you, keeping it straight. For the moment, you can keep your toes on the ground. And then, if it feels okay, raising your right foot up off the floor, creating a long straight leg. Looks like it's shooting straight out from your back. And if we feel okay and stable here, raising our left arm up straight in front, creating one long straight line from the ends of our left fingers through our back, all the way through that right leg, creating as much length and distance as possible. Noticing the balancing act that our body's going through, all the little stabilizer muscles working, fine-tuning, all without us telling it to. It just does it. And returning your left hand to the mat and your right knee to the mat. Just taking a breath here. extending your left leg behind you, keeping it as straight as possible, just for the moment, leaving your toes in contact with the floor. And then keeping the leg straight, raising it up off the ground. Just trying to keep it as straight as possible. And now if it feels okay, raising your right arm off the floor. Again, creating that long straight line from the ends of our right fingers to the very back of our left heel. Feeling that stretch, that length, the balancing and the stabilizing. And now returning our knee back down to the mat. Our hand back down to the mat. And then at your own pace, returning back to the floor on our backs with our knees bent, feet flat on the floor. Now extending our arms out for a T again, or if you don't have the space, feel free to put them behind your head. And we're going to let both legs fall down to the side, letting our knees stay stacked on top of each other as best we can. So falling over to the right. And if this feels okay and you'd like to go a little further into the stretch, looking over to your left-hand side. Feeling that twist throughout our torso. Watching how our body moves with the breath in this position. Just remaining here for a few moments. Now returning our knees back to center and our head back to neutral. Taking your time, maybe one leg at a time. Pausing here in the middle just to check in, see where things may feel different. The contrast between our two sides. And now letting your knees and your legs fall to the left-hand side slowly. Again, keeping your knees and your ankles stacked. Feeling free now to look over to the right. As we get ready to move back to center, just pay attention to the movement and the return. which parts of our body are working, what moves first, how do we leverage ourselves. So returning back to center, paying attention to as much detail as possible. Bringing our knees back to center and our head back to neutral. Now keeping our knees bent, you can place your hands either directly to your side, out to the T, or even raise them up above your head. We're going to press our heels into the floor, pressing our hips and our butt up off the ground so that only our heels, our upper back and shoulders, our head, and our arms are in contact with the floor. Creating this bridge, pressing our hips up as high as we can. Holding in this position. Feeling the legs working. Feeling our back and shoulders press down into the mat. And now returning to the floor slowly. Taking a couple breaths here. And now again, pressing our heels into the floor, driving our hips up towards the ceiling. Feeling our body at work. And nice and easy, returning to the floor, but paying attention to that moment where we remake contact with the floor, where tension is released and our body relaxes. Now keeping that left leg bent on the floor, we're going to straighten the right leg out in front of us. So left leg is bent, knee towards the ceiling, foot flat on the floor. Right leg is fully extended. And keeping that right leg as straight as possible, we're going to begin to raise up off the floor. As much as possible, attempting to point the bottom of our foot at the ceiling above. Noticing what parts of the body are at work now. Seeing if maybe we shift or try to accommodate with one side of our body versus the other. And then slowly returning the leg back to the floor. Again, taking your time, feeling the movement, and being there for the moment that it makes contact with the ground again. And now again, raising up. And this time, when it gets to the top, if you'd like to go a little deeper, you can reach up with your hand, your arms, grabbing either behind the thigh or the calf, and slowly raising your head off the ground, bringing your forehead towards your knee. Remember, that's just the intention. It doesn't mean you have to make contact. Breathing in this position. Returning our head now to the floor. Releasing the grip of our hands. And now returning our leg back to the floor. Keeping as straight as possible. Really experiencing the entire movement. Now, extending out our left leg so that both legs are fully extended. And just notice the difference between the left and the right now. What differences can you observe? And now bending the right leg, pointing our knee towards the ceiling, right foot flat on the floor. And beginning to raise the left leg. Attempting to point the bottom of our foot to the ceiling above. And slowly returning down. And again, raising the left leg off the floor, paying attention to how our body is doing this, what muscles are required, how much effort is required. And if you so choose, go ahead and grab behind the thigh or behind the calf. Slowly raise your head up off the floor, forehead towards the knee. And recognize that just because this was available on one side doesn't mean that it will be on the other. Or the degree to which we can do it may be different. And not that there's a good or a bad attached to that, but just the observation. Now releasing our head back to the floor. Releasing the grip of our hands. And now riding with the experience of letting the leg return to the floor. Now from here we're going to shift onto our side, keeping our legs stacked on top of each other, knees stacked, ankles stacked. Placing your bottom arm underneath your head for support, and your top arm in front of you, palm on the floor. Now with the top leg straight, raising it up towards the ceiling. Just finding that top position, holding it there. Recognizing now potentially a whole different group of muscles that are at work. And slowly returning back. And one more time, raising that top leg off the floor, away from your other leg. and back down. Now switching to the other side, rolling over, legs straight, stacked, bottom arm supporting your head, top arm in front of you, palm on the floor. And now raising that top leg up. Feeling your foot move closer to the ceiling. Checking in to see how straight your leg is. And returning back. And one more time, raising up. And attempting to do so slower than before, just nice and easy. Return back down on top of the other leg. Now laying face down on our mat. Legs fully extended, arms hanging down to our sides so our hands are by our hip. And if it's not comfortable to have your chin on the mat facing straight forward, just turn your head to one side. Now raising your left leg off of the floor. Attempting to keep it relatively straight. Feeling your foot, your knee, part of your thigh raising up off the floor. Noticing how this feels in the upper leg, lower back. And returning back down. And on this next raise, again, just recognizing what parts of your body engage first, what's really involved in this movement. And raising up off the floor. And returning. Now if you did turn your head to one side, at this point go ahead and, if it's comfortable, turn to the other side. And now raising our right leg off of the floor. Maybe noticing a difference in how far one leg can go in comparison to the other. Potentially a difference in difficulty from one side to the other. And slowly back down. And one last time, raising that right leg up off the floor. And down. Now still from this position, we're going to raise our head, our chin, and attempt to raise our chest off the mat. So coming up, leading with the top of the head, seeing how much of our torso we can raise up off the ground, noticing the arch in our lower back now. Feeling the breath move through the body in this position. And then relaxing back down. And one more time. Up, lead with the top of the head. Chin up off the mat, chest up off the mat. Before we return on this one, I want you, on the way back down, to feel it going down section by section. Starting with the chest, feel it rolling up, each part releasing in your upper back as the tension is released, and then returning your chin and your head down. So go ahead and do so, slowly, just paying attention. And then as you're ready, rolling back over onto your back. Going back to the position that we originally started. Flat on our backs, feet out in front of us. Letting our toes and feet kind of fall down to the side. Arms laying flat to our side. And just being here. Checking in with how our body feels now. Noticing how it feels to have done this practice for yourself. And as the bell rings, just sit in the moment until you can no longer hear the end of the third bell. And at that point, take as long as you like. Take whatever your body needs. When you're ready, just getting up, taking a moment to sit before you get up and reconnect with your day.